I think it's live now. Can you check again? we are live. Everyone say hello.
Hello.
Well, hello.
Can everyone hear us? We had some,
Julissa, intro still going on.
yeah, it's a little delayed on their end, so we're gonna show
Okay,
up
okay,
like,
okay,
we're
okay.
like 30 seconds behind.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now it's on. Yep.
yeah. So, like, whatever we're saying now, they're not gonna hear it until like 30 seconds later. So, just FYI. All right, we're just gonna say our names real quick. I mean, I think everyone knows us, but we have some new children, and I don't know if they're connected, but my name is Jaleesa. Reynold, you're above me, so you can go next.
my name is Ronald. The order is different in mine, so I'm like way in the bottom, but nice to meet you, everybody.
All right, Jenny is next on my end.
Let's do it first. Everyone.
She's cutting off. She's driving, so okay, Rafi, say hello if you're there.
I am Rafi, and my wife Jocelyn.
Oh, Jocelyn's there too.
Yeah.
We can't see your screen, by the way. Just FYI. Go ahead, Susanna slash Jose, who is on Susanna's account.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, guys. You guys know me. I'm Jose. My wife, Susanna, the honest one.
Mandy.
Hi guys, my name is Amanda or Mandy.
No, just Amanda. I call her Mandy. Go, Sammy.
Hello, my name is Samuel, but you can feel free to call me Sam, Sammy, Samuelito, whatever you feel like. That's fine, as long as you call me something with Sam in it.
Okay.
Samwise Gamgee.
All right, guys. We're very happy to be here with you guys one more time. So, we're going to go ahead and get started with the first question of the night. So, we need a little bit of time towards the end so we can vote for the logo. We're going to get a new logo and we're going to get some shirts so that we can use them on trips because I keep losing track of you guys and I need a shirt to keep me on track. So, we're going to be doing that soon. So we narrowed down a few logos and we're going to let you guys choose the very final design of the shirt. And everyone on here can vote as well. So, hooray. All right, first topic of the night is how to read the Bible. So I'm going to start the timer. And what do you guys think? How do you read the
Um,
Bible?
oh, I could remember my struggles back in the day, when first converting and eager to learn about the Bible. And like one of the mistakes I learned that when don't just randomly buy a Bible, ask around because I didn't know about different translation. So my first Bible was the King James Bible, and that
Oh,
was different. Yeah, that
painful.
was that, that was like Shakespearean how to read the Bible. It was difficult, and but I stayed with it. It does push you to learn the Bible if you stay with it. And still, I thought that was the only Bible there. So when somebody tell me there's different translation, it made it much easier. So
Yeah.
I think you should look what translation works for you before you get a new Bible. And the way I'm talking to you now, it makes it easy to read the Bible. And don't just look for the fanciest Bible. I know you have to spend more to because the Bible there's some Bibles that help you learn what the verses are talking about, like little notes in the end and stuff like that, and titles. Because you could buy a fancy cover, but you still could be lost.
Right.
So that. That's my opinion. I mean, that's one aspect will help you read the Bible.
One aspect, definitely, because if you don't understand what you're reading, it doesn't really matter how much you read.
Yeah,
So it's
some Bibles, you gotta look at as cars. It's better what's under the hood. So read what you know when you go to the bookstore. It tells you if it has like little study notes and stuff like that. Don't just get the fanciest looking leather cover with the golden edge. It's just this is pointless. So learning the Bible is like investment. So
yeah, definitely for sure. I'm glad you brought that up. Anybody else want to chime in about this? No.
I'll go ahead and say what helps me. Like Reynold said, there's different versions, and well, personally, I read in English just because English is my first language. But since I also speak Spanish, I don't know if anyone here also speaks Spanish with of the kids, but I use the Spanish also to compare sometimes because sometimes if I don't understand something in English, I'll see the Spanish side of it, and then I'll see and then that helps me understand more. And I also have a study Bible, which extremely helps me. There's actually one that I recommend. It's called Gospel Transformation Bible, and you can actually see how you can tie Christ even in the Old Testament, because we have to remember Jesus is the center of the whole Bible. Even the stories from the Old Testament all point to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So my study Bible helps me see how I can connect that even in the Old Testament. And guys, you have to remember that you don't need to read like 10 chapters a day. You can read one chapter of the Bible a day, but you have to clearly understand it. It's not just about reading and like just reading, it's about understanding what the text says. So even if that means that you're reading one chapter a day, but make sure that you're understanding what you're reading. And I think we have that misconception that we think that we have to read like 10 chapters a day and it's just to read. But it's more than that. We have to make sure that we're understanding what we're reading. And something else I like to do is I like to write notes. I think it's fun. And it makes my experience like, more fun. I have different colors and stuff like that. If girls, it's probably girls who would probably be more interested in doing that.
Yeah.
But it helps me so that I can make my my time more fun, and I enjoy what I'm reading, and I'm paying attention to what I'm writing. And yeah, that's my take on it.
I would add on to that, like the knowing what you're reading part. And one of the things that helped me the most is the fact that if you are reading the Bible, you have to be unbiased. So what I mean by that is go back into history of what the time, culture, tradition, all that was meant for. I think a lot of us we take the morals, I guess the ethics that we would have now in this day, which would be culturally like a way of doing things, and we enter it as if like you're judging people from the Old Testament for doing things a certain way or in past times. But just the same way that we would study history, we study their culture of how things are done, because of course everything was done completely different. Now the morals are the same, but the way that we look at things may be a little bit different. So as well as going back and understanding who God was talking to. God was trying to help them understand. It was trying to be as simplistic as possible, so that they're able to, even the simpleton person would be able to understand the Bible so that they can be saved as well.
So I actually agree with Mandy as well. I think that you need to have the Bible that you would just kind of just read through, and then you need to have a Bible where that helps you study. Um, so I have a Bible that I use for my daily Bible study, which I use Table Talk. If you don't know Table Talk, it's amazing. They're very Calvinistic, so you have to be pretty careful about their Calvinistic views. But they send me a magazine with daily Bible studies, and you only have to read like 1 to like 10 Bible verses a day, I kind of got away from the whole read the Bible in 1 year thing because I felt like I was just rushing through the Bible instead of actually studying it. So now I'm actually just reading little small portions. It took me like 4 months to get to the First Corinthians with Bible Talk, and I love it because I actually understand what I'm reading as opposed to just rushing through it just so that I can say I read the Bible in a year. And I felt like that wasn't really helping me. So I got this Bible. It's the CSB Note Taking Bible. This is actually a customized cover. But I actually really enjoy writing through it as I'm studying. I actually doodled through all of Genesis, and I have these. I think guys should do the whole note taking if they want to, but I personally enjoy doodling and like drawing. Let me show you. Like I'll have like little drawings. It just makes my Bible experience more enjoyable. And like for example, for First Corinthians, I have a lot of writing because I went through the whole thing with Bible Talk. And I use different color pens just to make it fun. So there you could follow a 1 year plan, but I find that personally tedious. I find that I don't enjoy it. So Table Talk was my actually saving grace for reading the Bible daily because it's very mom friendly. It's short amounts of verses and there's a study that goes with it, and it continues from whatever you read the past few days. It's not like it skips around. So there's this continuous thought process to study the Bible. And it's been very helpful for me. And I've been keeping up with my daily Bible study. I mean, I forget like 1 or 2 days maybe here and there, but it's now I'm going on 2 years. So that was really my saving grace. Table Talk was what saved me for being able to read the Bible every day. I mean, I always read the Bible, but it was not consistent. It was very sporadic. And I feel like this is what really worked for me. So, some people, the whole year thing does work. But I would say find a translation you really like. If you like doodling, if you like drawing and all that stuff, incorporate it in your Bible study. And just don't rush through it. Take your time. If you have to read a Bible verse or a passage, never read a verse, always a passage. But if you have to read a passage like 5 times, then do it. Don't rush through it. And always make sure to have like a Bible study. We have some that we recommend in the teens group. But there's ways to create a habit out of it. You have to stick with it for a while before it becomes natural. Anybody else?
I'm
I was
a.
gonna, oh,
Oh, go for it. Go for it. I talked already.
I was just gonna say also I use the Bible app and I like using that. I'm gonna chime in on Amanda. I do the same thing. I go with the English and Spanish sometimes because certain things are just it makes sense to me to kind of combine it. But the Bible app, I like it because it gives you different plans and it gives you little reminders. So anything to kind of, we all have busy days, we all have a life, but if we could kind of have those little reminders and incorporate that, that also kind of helps you. You could put little timers or even share a verse or something. I think you could share certain plans or sometimes with other people, your contacts or whatnot. But I think that also, I love the Bible app just because it has the different versions there as well.
I completely forgot about that, but you're totally right. That's like that used to be what I used. But again, um, I use it specifically because of the reminders because I would forget as well before I created it into a habit. So I'm glad you said that. Also, a strategy that someone said a while back that I completely forgot to mention right until now is to read the same passage for like a week. And his purpose behind that is that if you read a passage over and over again, you're going to know exactly what it's talking about. And whenever you need to know where that is, you're going to know because you've read it so much and now you kind of like just memorize what the passage is about. So that's another strategy, and again, don't rush through it. Don't, if the whole 1 year thing doesn't work, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's perfect as well. Just don't rush through it. Try to understand what you're reading. If you have to ask questions, ask them too. Daffy, what were you going to say?
Like switching gears a little bit, and we're talking about the way to read it, but reflecting on the question itself, like how do you read the Bible? I think if it sums up, it's read it with a purpose. So it's something that my wife was telling me here. I'll be her spokesperson, but she was telling me, like, honestly, do it the way that works for you. Everybody's different, so of course it varies person to person. But the most important thing is to keep discipline. Because motivation is only going to help you so far. So really come up with what would make the most sense, because, she likes to doodle on her stuff and all this. I don't care for it, but, as long as it gets done, that really is what matters. And when you do read it with a purpose.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things we have to also understand is that you don't spiritualize everything you read in the Bible. Some of the poetic stuff is symbolic. Some of the parables are symbolic. But the Old Testament, for the most part, is descriptive. And the New Testament, for the most part, is prescriptive. And what that means is that descriptive means that they're describing what happened in history. Everything that happened always points to Jesus, but it's actual history. You don't spiritualize, Goliath isn't your problems that you're going to, kill with the stones, and the stones don't represent like your strength and your courage. None of those things. They're actual history. Don't try to make it symbolic or anything like that. And then the New Testament is prescriptive, which means it's things that we're supposed to be doing and imitating from Christians in the early times of church. So keep that in mind as well. And like Jocelyn says, everyone is different. Find what works for you. Just don't try to put meaning into the Bible that isn't there. Read it and discover the meaning instead of trying to put your meaning into it. That's very important. Okay? We got 50 seconds. Anybody else want to conclude for us? Go ahead, man.
Something else.
I just wanted to mention something. Sorry.
No, you can go ahead.
I think Katie Faust was the person that said that if you read a verse for a whole week, you will know and memorize it better.
Oh yeah, she did say it, but I learned that from someone else a long time ago. I just can't remember his name.
Well, it was my first time learning it from her.
Yeah, Katie Faust, by the way, she's amazing. If you haven't heard her, Mandy, go ahead, finish us up.
Yeah, going off what Rocky said, discipline. Sometimes you're not going to feel like reading the Bible, and sometimes we're just not going to want to because we're human and we have that tendency. But what's important is we know the importance of knowing God and knowing about God and what He likes, and that's why it's important to read the Bible, because you want to know God. As His children, we want to know God. So make that a priority every day.
Yes. And as I always say, your feelings should not guide you. Truth guides us. So remember that, guys. Okay, guys, if you have any questions, make sure to be putting them in the chat. Hopefully my thing is updating because I don't see anything for a while now. So hopefully that means that you're still listening. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. And the next topic for us today is confessing sin and who to go to when you want to confess sin. So anyone want to start us off?
Just to clarify the question, does it mean who do you go to advise you of how to confess sin? Because there's only one person you go to confess sin.
Well, see, that is a notion that we have a lot as Pentecostals. It's actually in the New Testament, confessing sin to one another was actually a very well known practice that we don't do. And it was mostly because they allowed other people to keep them accountable. There was also a lot of grace as far as helping each other get out of a sin. And also because biblical discipline was applied. So all those things combined made for a great atmosphere for people to seek someone to tell them, I did this sin, I messed up, help me, and then pray for each other and all that. So actually the whole notion of comes from the fact that we associate confessing sin with Catholics because they do the whole me voy a ir a confesar con el padrecito thing. But it's actually a very well known, especially Baptists practice this. Reformed Baptists practice this a lot, where they they have people in the church that they trust that they can go to about these things, these issues, and it's something we don't practice. So that's why when Jenny brought up the topic in our chat and the kids voted for it, I was really happy about it because it's not something that we do at our church. And it's something that we should be doing. So this is going to be a great topic to just kind of think about it. And because, if you think about it, who do you go to? Because you don't want to go to your friend who is probably worse than you, and he's probably just going to encourage you and just tell you, you're fine, don't worry about it, just get over it, Jesus forgave you. You don't want to go to someone like that. So who do we go to? Anybody chime in?
I just want to add in on that, and basically what I agree with what Jaleesa's saying, that the whole Catholic thing is, that's the whole custom. We go to the Father, they give you the Hail Marys, and then you're good to go. That is not the case. Your friend in the locker room is not the person you confess your sins to. That's number one. You need to find, my advice is you need to find an adult, a leader. Your parents should be the ones, because they're the ones that are supposed to help and guide you for. Now, if you're scared of your parents, or if you have a fear, or maybe you sinned against your parents and you don't want to tell them, then you need to find a leader and someone that you can really, that 100% you can trust. But it has to be an adult. It can't be, like Julissa said, your best friend that's worse than you, or your best friend that's just going to be like, whatever, just forget about it. Oh, time will heal. That's not the case. You need someone who is going to pray for you, pray with you, and carry the burden alongside you. Sometimes what helps with me is if I see someone that's probably either been through the same situation that I've been through, that can help me. Like if you went through it, like my wife said, we're relatable. Like if you've been through it and I see how you're different, help me go through what you went through. You know what I mean? Walk me through this situation that I'm going through. How did you overcome? What did you do? What did you say? Who did you go to? Where did you find? Things like that. That's why I think like a leader, adults, your parents, but really the person, your best friend that's, like Julissa says, worse than you, is not the case. That's my take.
Yeah. I think it's also important that...
Well, I guess...
Oh, go ahead. Whoever was going to talk.
I was going to say this is very insightful, because as much as I knew that it was something that should be done, I didn't know it was a practice. But the Old Testament anyways. Now, that being said, I grew up in a house where you do not rely on people to confess. I mean, like you go to God and you kind of rely on God. You don't trust people, period. All right. So I think a lot of us grew up the same way. So I think it's important to, I've found that mentorship is a huge thing. Always find a mentor, and a good one. Okay. There's a lot of bad ones, but either way, when you do so, especially as teenagers, I mean, I can say like my wife and stuff, but I know you guys wouldn't have those resources. But it would be more of the fact that when you tell them, when you're confessing this, don't give them a burden of secret. It's your point of confessing it to them is not for them to keep the secret, and you just need to let it out. Because if someone who is a mentor is going to advise you, even if it not their solution may not be the most pleasing to you, especially because you're going to get in trouble. Remember, what you're doing is confessing. That you don't confess good things, you're doing bad things. So there's, some type of atonement that is required. So and when you go to somebody and don't expect for them to be like they said, no, it's okay, it'll be okay. Which a good mentor will tell you it will get better, but you have to first hit it face on. I mean, you did something, you now pay the price for it. It's as simple as that. And with what he was saying is when you go to somebody, don't expect to hear what you want to hear. Expect what needs to be done.
Exactly. And I think that
Have those resources, but it would be more of the fact that when you tell them, when you're confessing this, don't give them a burden of secret.
yeah, I think it's also important to remember that um like whenever you're looking to confess sin, it may require that you approach the person you have sinned against, depending on the situation, of course, um, because sometimes that's what it requires to like fix it. Um, and that might be tough, but you have to remember that whenever you do something you're not supposed to, somebody has to fix that. There needs to be justice for the wrong that's been done. And as much as you can, then you need to fix it. Like, for example, something very simple, like if you scratch your brother's car, that's not going to be something that you're going to have to majorly confess to someone. But just an example, if you scratch your brother's car, don't just say sorry. You have to pay for the damages. You don't get to just say sorry and walk away. You did a wrong and somebody has to fix that. It's not fair that they pay for it because you're the one who messed it up. So, in the same sense, there's going to be sins that require that you step up to the plate. Like something as common as, for example, getting a girl pregnant. You don't get to say, I'm sorry, and walk away. You got to step up to the plate. So these are the kinds of things that if your mentor is mentoring you correctly, and by the way, you should find a mentor. It's very important to find a mentor. It's super important. Even if it's, just one person, if you can have more, even better, and allow them to keep you accountable so that when you do something that's not right, they can approach you and say, hey, you're doing this wrong, and you not give them attitude. That's a huge sign of maturity and growth and of love of Jesus, because that's what Jesus would want you to do. He would want you to have someone to keep you accountable, to tell you if you're doing something wrong. So all of these things are very important. And so as far as who to go to, I would definitely say first someone you can trust, but not just someone who you can trust because of course you can trust your best friend, but someone who's going to confront you, who's comfortable, who's actually going to confront you, not make you feel comfortable about your sin, and someone who's going to help you, like not just be like, oh yeah, you can trust me, I confront you, and then to just leave you at that. Someone who's going to help you get up, pray for you, look out for you. And if they see that you're kind of falling in the same pathway again, they're going to say, hey, don't go that way. Don't do that. That's bad. That's wrong. You're going to end up falling again. So you want to make sure that you're choosing people that are actually going to tell you the truth even when it hurts. So definitely make sure to think about that person even now as you're hearing this. Like, who is that person? Who is that person that you can trust and that you can confess a sin to, and they'll confront you and put you in your place about it, but also help you and pray with you and help you get up. So, it's just one of those things that you should really right now is a perfect age to think of who that person is, for sure. Anybody else want to add? We got 4 minutes and 45 seconds.
And I would like to say, even if they have that hard burden, do look for somebody, but don't leave the church. I notice people who does have a
Yeah.
tough time leaves the church because of a bad situation like that. Do find somebody in church that could help you, even keep the love of God inside of your heart, and that help you fix that problem. You know, because people finding to fix that problem out there, but it's better to fix the problem inside of the church.
That's a really good point. Thank you for saying that, because the solution is never to leave church. Because if you leave church, there is no discipline. If there's no discipline, you won't fix the problem. You're just going to avoid it for a little bit, wait for, como dicen, que las aguas se calmen, and then come back. And then you're going to end up doing the same thing again. So the solution is never to leave church. Put your little pants on, little skirt on, and confront the situation that you created, and stay. Take the discipline. Be obedient. I wish there was much more discipline applied, because then we would avoid sin much more. But regardless, even if it's not that person, allow someone else to keep you in your place. It can be done. If you really want to, it can be done.
So, self reflecting on it, fellowship. It all comes down to fellowship. I mean,
Right.
it's now let's be honest here. This is reality, right? The concept of fellowship is perfect because it's God's plan for us, but as humans, we've managed to mess it up.
Right.
So, here's the thing. As in our church, it's a little hard to just get up and start trusting people, because you're looking for a mentor, and maybe you trust them, they trust the wrong people to tell. Let's gossip pretty much comes down to, right? So unfortunately, that is something that no matter in this church or any church, that is any culture, any tradition, you will have that problem. Okay, that does not mean if someone will break your trust that you have to give up on fellowship. I know a lot of people will completely isolate themselves because, like, the 2 people I trusted completely broke my trust. I mean, it really comes down to just like any other relationship. Without trusting them with something, how can you know if you can trust them, right? So fellowship is it's an idea that God made for us to be able to stay accountable, because even though God is our God, like we that sense of social construct, like it's us with other people, we need that, right? Because we're not a isolated creation. There's a reason why there's a lot of us, right? And God put us in groups. That's why he made churches, literally for that same purpose. That's why attending church is a huge thing, not only to stay accountable with other members of Christianity, but also to be able to praise them and everything. So together, that's a huge thing. So there will be times where the people that you trust may fail you. That's going to be in church or out of church. Okay, so don't give up on fellowship strictly because it may or may not work out. I mean, when I have failed in the past, also you have to remember the fact that even if it does leak out, let's say that you tell somebody and you trusted them and it leaks out, you made that decision. You cannot get mad at them for the punishment that you receive for your actions. Like for me, for instance, when I have failed in the past, people could easily talk about you, but you feel judged and everything, but you kind of did that to yourself. You have to accept certain aspects, especially when you have a group of people. When you fail, you're going to be able to talk for a little bit. But it doesn't mean leave the church and wait for everybody to stop talking about you. It's face it on, take your punishment, but make sure that you get up and the right people are going to be next to you to help you lift up. That's what fellowship is really about.
Yeah. And that's why it's important to have fellowship, because if you're not part of the fellowship, if you think about it, you can sin and nobody's going to find out, and you're going to get away with sin, and then you're going to end up losing your soul for eternity. And this is why fellowship is so important, to keep us accountable in that sense. So, the thing about fellowship is that there's a lot of benefits, but we have to be willing to be humble and allow people to keep us accountable and ask us questions. Hey, where you been? What's going on? And we don't like that. We're very proud. We're very like, it's my life, it's my business. Don't ask me anything. Don't tell me what to do. I get to do whatever I want. And we can't have that kind of attitude. And I get it. I get it, because if you allow me to be my own natural self, that's exactly how I would react. But having to be like Christ requires that we are not that way. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end it there so we can move on to the next topic. So let's go ahead. And the next topic is suicide. This one's a touchy subject. So does anyone want to get us started on this topic about suicide?
I would like to say something.
Okay.
So personally, I have a close friend that dealt with this issue, and I had no idea my friend was suffering from depression and anxiety and a lot of other issues going on in his life. And we would talk a lot, and out of nowhere, he just stopped reaching out to me. I tried reaching out to him. My policy is after 3 times you don't reach out to me, I just don't really want to bother you anymore. But what I can say about that is definitely talk to somebody about it. Like our brother Jose said earlier, time is not going to change your depression or the situation. Definitely talk to somebody as soon as possible. That way, whether it's with medicine, psychology, counseling, you can get help as soon as possible.
For sure. I definitely want to say that if you're going to reach out for a counselor or a psychiatrist or psychologist, always try to find someone who's Christian, because someone who does not believe that God exists, their solutions are either going to be temporary or very mediocre. And it might work, but it's always going to be temporary, because remember, a lot of the things that cause people to seek suicide, a lot of them have to do with the brokenness of our actual soul. Like, barely ever does it have to do with physical pain, or with like anything physical. It's usually interior pain, or like people who are hurting inside. So nobody is going to be able to address that better than God. And if you don't believe in God, you're never going to bring God into the picture, and God is the only one who can actually help you. So always try to seek a Christian counselor, psychologist, or psychiatrist, whatever. And then, reach out to someone though. And for those of you who are listening, we went to the reality conference not too long ago. There was actually a whole subject on suicide. And the guy said to directly, if you suspect a friend who is going to try to commit suicide, you have to directly ask them, are you going to try to take your life? Are you going to try to kill yourself? You actually have to say it, because what research has found is that people who are directly asked, a lot of lives are saved that way, as opposed to just being vague about it. So just directly ask, are you going to try to kill yourself? Literally use the words, because they either say yes or no. If they say no, great, you finally know. If they say, sí, papi, está bien. If they say yes, then okay, I need to get my friend help. There's plenty of phone numbers that you can get online. If you're at school, you can reach out to a counselor. You can pray for them. So don't just pray for them though, because, there are things that you can do aside from praying that will be helpful. And you can't just cross your arms and be like, I'll just pray about it. No. Tell an adult, tell someone, a teacher, a counselor, somebody, but you have to tell someone. That's very important. Does anyone else want to add about this?
Yeah. Oh, you can go ahead, Jose. Okay, I'll go. Okay. All right. So, first, I just want everyone to know, everyone listening, is that in the Bible, there are so many people who struggled with suicide, believe it or not, who literally wrote books about how much they quote unquote hated their lives. There was people who Solomon, if you guys have ever read Ephesians or Lamentaciones, literally Lamentations, those are like depressing books. And these authors talk about how they hate life and stuff like that, but it's because this world is full of sin. We are in a broken world, and we have to remember that. Don't feel like you're alone, or that there's not other Christians who struggle with depression or with thoughts of suicide. But I want to remind you guys of what Romans 8:18 says. It says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." So the thing is, the time here spent on earth is not our last destination. We're not of this world. There is something better that we are waiting for. And so the little time that we might suffer or go through these things here on earth, don't compare to the eternity that awaits us. That is worth it. It's worth it. But again, if you are struggling with these things, it's okay to reach out. It's okay to seek help. And like Julissa said, make sure it's with someone who is Christian, who will help you through the lens of the gospel, because that's really the only way we can have hope is in Christ. So yeah, that's my take on
I
it.
do want to express that if someone tells you, I'm going to pray for you for that demon to come out, go somewhere else after that. Okay, let them pray for you. Just let them put their hands on you and pray for you out of respect, especially if they're a leader from church. But like from any church, not just ours. Like especially if they're a leader from any church. But then go somewhere else and seek someone else who's going to help you, because that will not solve the problem. Okay, now can it? Because God could decide to miraculously take away those suicidal thoughts from your mind? Absolutely. Is it likely? No. Why? Because again, like Mandy said, we're in a broken world. Okay, very rare. I've never read anywhere in the Bible where God snapped his fingers and took away someone's pain from sin, right? That doesn't go away like that. Okay, there's Jesus who is needed, and there's a whole humans are way too complicated for it to be that simple. Okay, so it's very important that you understand that there has to be some kind of help as far as talking through it, sessions. It's not as easy as it sounds. Okay, and from that, I'd like to move on to the notion of what happens after someone commits suicide. Because I think that we have this misconception about how everyone who commits suicide who was a Christian automatically ends up in hell. Now, someone who is not a Christian and commits suicide will end up in hell, not because they committed suicide, but because they're sinners and they didn't have the saving grace of Jesus Christ. But when you have a Christian brother or a Christian sister, and it can happen, people who believe fully in Jesus and have walked with Jesus and followed him and been faithful, commit suicide, there is a notion that they automatically go to hell. What's your thoughts on that, guys? We have 6 minutes and 25 seconds to cover that.
Well, if we think about it that way, that means that you have to die literally asking for forgiveness at that exact minute to go to heaven. Like, it's a failure. So it's not like you can just practice suicide. You know what I mean? It's a failure. Like, you can easily have a full life of dedication to Christ, and something extremely dramatic happens, and unfortunately you didn't have the mentality or the support for that to overcome that certain situation, commit suicide, let's say. I think at that point it comes down to, I mean, in logical and reasoning through what we read through the Bible, I would say no, but it would come down to God's perfect judgment. It's not for us to say, but if we would read the Bible, people die all the time while having failed Christ. Maybe not necessarily being able to pray at that moment and ask for forgiveness and still feel regret and remorse for what they were doing. I mean, you can even be feeling remorse as you're committing suicide. So it really becomes a really tricky issue. I would say no, not necessarily.
Sammy, what do you think?
So I've heard a few podcasts about what happens if a Christian commits suicide. One of the most, I guess, notable ones I've heard, Dr. Frank Turek and even J. Warner Wallace talk about. He was, I want to say he was a teacher. He was like really big against abortion. His name was Mike Adams. He was Christian, like an extremely talented, smart guy. And in the podcast, when they're talking about like memorials about him, they were saying how, like when COVID happened and he couldn't teach in person, and then he was stating certain opinions about COVID and how, you know, they shouldn't have closed everything down. A lot of people came hard against him. And unfortunately, he ended up committing suicide. And then in the podcast, they go through the whole notion about if maybe things were different. I honestly, I don't think it justifies him ending his life. But one point they did make is that, let's say you do commit suicide, which again, we're not encouraging. I personally am not encouraging that.
Yeah, nobody here.
But you God's plan in your life, instead of God naturally taking your life away by allowing, whether it's, you know, your body to die on its own or accident or whatever your final fate may be, you're playing God and you're taking your own life. And what if God had a great purpose for you, whether it was to preach, whether it was to father, you know, a family, whatever God had, that plan is totally cut out by your choice of doing that.
Yeah.
I got a couple.
Go ahead, Jose.
No, I have a couple things to say about this topic because it kind of hits home for me. I spoke to Ray and I spoke to Sammy when we went to the trip in Philly, and I also spoke to the teacher out there that gave the lesson. This topic hits home for me because, for one, my biological father actually committed suicide. He hung himself in our basement. My mother overdosed, and she was on suicide watch for a while. My sister did overdose, and she was on suicide watch for about 3 weeks. Me and my brothers have actually had thought of suicide multiple times before I came to Christ. This topic actually really does hit home a lot for me because of this, because for one, it is a depression. It is a mental state that you go through, and without anything, like Julissa had said, it is a calling of help. It is a calling of someone help me. And without Jesus being in your life, you are now separated from Jesus, and you are within that depression state of loneliness, just sad and not being able to get through this type of subject. My thoughts on whether a Christian goes to heaven or hell after they commit suicide. There's a lot of biblical content that says, one, you can't take your own life, that God is the only one who gives and takes your life. Second, you can't commit a murder because this is an intentional sin. Once you commit suicide, this is a planned thing, number one. So you are now planning a sin. And like how Rafi said, it would have to be in that moment. If you kind of linger, and you're still alive for that split second, but you're not conscious enough to speak out to the open, but in your mind, you're alive, you're able to repent at that moment, because this is about repenting on a sin. Now, committing, como dicen, una falta is something different as committing un pecado. This is a sin that you're committing, and if the sin is there, Jesus is not. If you're committing, an accident that is something that you repent on, and you have to ask forgiveness for Jesus to come back into your life. That is the topic that I kind of sway on that. And again, it's a touchy subject for me, and it kind of hits home because of this situation. Like I've told everyone before, and I've told everybody in the class that who are listening, you really need to talk to the person. I do agree with what the teacher did say about actually asking them, hey, are you going to kill yourself? Things like that. Something happened to the screen?
No, just the timer.
We're still going? Okay. Okay. But yes, I do agree with a lot of that stuff that he was saying. But whether or not, if you're a Christian and you go to heaven if you commit suicide, to me, that is an easy out for me. To me, you decide to just check out and just say, screw it, I'm done. I'm just gonna go take it and I'm gonna go to heaven. That is an easy out for anybody to just say, let me just kill myself, which I don't agree with. I do not agree with that at all. And I agree with the fact that how Rafi said, Jesus is the one to naturally take away your life if he does so himself.
I think also one of them, Jose. So this is probably gonna be a topic we disagree on, which, guys, is okay. I want you to notice how we're gonna disagree on this topic. Everything's cool. We're still gonna be a cool team, get along, okay? So because because actually I actually don't think that the word sin and there is no difference between the word falta and pecado in as far as the biblical context in the passages. I know some people believe that, but there is actually no difference between those words in the Bible. If you look at other passages, God uses the word falta a lot to refer to sin. Not God, I'm sorry. The authors who God uses to write the Bible. So that's actually something also I disagree on, as far as what there is no difference between Christians and non-Christians as far as these mistakes and sin. We all sin. And I think that's probably going to be the main reason why we disagree on this topic. Because say you lie and you die right after you lied, that's a sin. You didn't have time to repent from that. So does that mean you go to hell because you forgot to repent from that lie? And I think this is where the conflict is, because we make some sins worse than others. And, if you commit a sin, it's a sin. But if you want to label it as just a mistake, then that's where people are going to have a different theory when it comes to this. Because if a lie is just a mistake, but then murder is a sin, the Bible says lying is a sin. It doesn't say it's a mistake. So how do we, navigate through this? Now, I do want to say that you should be scared of suicide in the sense that you should think that if you commit it, think of it as you'll go to hell if you do it. I mean that in the sense that to have the fear of taking a life, because nobody has the right to take a life. You don't even have the right to take your own life. So you are definitely committing a sin by taking your own life. But then if we say that by taking your own life, you committed a sin and then you're going to go to hell, we would have to then say that if someone lies and didn't repent from that lie, goes to hell. And this is where my conflict is, because I could commit a sin and not even realize that I committed the sin, and not say sorry for it, not confess it to God because I didn't realize I did it. I want to believe that God's grace is greater than that it'll cover those sins, even if I die at that moment. But again, like Rafi said, nobody's actually going to know when it comes to suicide, because nobody actually knows the state of that heart except for God's perfect judgment. So it's like this. And again, we can't go ask the victim of suicide, It's not we can be like, hey, so what happened? We can't do that. So this is definitely a subject where people debate on and disagree on a lot. So I think, Sammy, did you have your hand raised, Sammy?
Yes, I did. Because I was gonna mention some, or at least one, Paul, which I actually got the verse. Because in my opinion, if anybody in the Bible, well, a lot of them, but like definitely somebody that had the right to take their life because of everything they went through was Paul. You know, Paul was beaten, almost dead. He was in prison, shipwrecked. Terrible things happened to this
Don't
man.
mind Paul, Job. Whew.
And Job too. Like there are people that ask God, just take my life.
Yeah.
And then you compare it to, like, for example, King Saul, who actually took his life. And it's like, you're gonna suffer for Christ. I'm sorry to say, unfortunately, it's part of the package. We're gonna go through suffering, but I think I really like what Philippians 1:21 says. You know, like to live is in Christ, and if you die naturally, not that doesn't infer you taking your own life, but like I said, God taking your life, it's for Christ. So that's what I want to say.
Ray, you had your hand up.
To be honest, I had a problem with this back in the past when I wasn't Christian. So that emotional pain is strong, and you try to replace it with physical pain. So when I became a Christian, it really helped that God took those thoughts away from my mind. So that's why I always say, when you have a problem, deal with it in church. Because I always say sin is like a rabbit hole. You could go deep and get lost, you know. So you don't want to get lost. Like, stay with Christ and he'll be in your life.
Find a mentor, guys. It's important to have a mentor. And again, we do want to clarify that we are taking a life is wrong. Okay? Whether it's yours or someone else's, we are not in any way or shape or form encouraging anyone and saying, okay, it's okay if you do it. No, absolutely not. It is a sin. God is not okay with it. It is wrong. Okay? And personally, I don't think you should risk it. Because, again, we don't have the answer to these questions. We're just speculating here, right? So what if we're wrong? You know, and this is the thing that, you know, you don't want to find out. Because that's not God's plan. God's plan is never for anyone to commit suicide.
Yeah. Two last things I want to say real quick is, first off, we both that have talked about this say back before I was a Christian. Now, just to be clear, you guys as teens can be Christians and still have these thoughts. Okay. If anything, the devil's going to try to aim for you even more because you are a Christian. Okay. Especially if you're mentally weak, he will know that and he'll try to aim for you exactly at that moment. So just because you become a Christian, it's not like those thoughts are just going to vanish. Kudos for those who it can happen to, because that's a miracle, nothing short of a miracle. But it may not. I mean, it may not go away. Your evil thoughts may not go away. If psychopaths become Christians, it's not like, oh, I'm not a psychopath anymore. That's not how it works. And in the same place, I'm talking about psychopaths, in fact, there are different types. You can do the same sin in a different way with a different heart. The reason I say that is because there's a reason why us as humans, when we judge murderers, there are manslaughter people that do it out of emotion, and then there's psychopaths that plan it and enjoy it. All right. So again, God will know the heart of that person. And this is why it becomes such a hard place, because it's not an automatic, if you commit suicide, you go to hell, just as if you commit murder, you're going to hell. It's the heart that person may have at the moment, because it may be one that they just are enjoying the pain and they enjoy to do so, or it's just an evil nature within them, and that's their own judgment that they'll have to have with God. And then there's sometimes where people are going through emotional turmoil that they themselves put themselves in that situation, or it's just something that they could not control and they're just in this very dark place, and unfortunately they didn't have the resource or the mentality to be able to get themselves out of it, and then unfortunately they commit that sin. So that's why it's not one of those things where it's like A equals B. It's like there's so many other factors that go into it, and this is why us as humans, we cannot judge that perfectly. That will literally just be left to God, because nobody else, you cannot interview a suicide person. You will have to wait to get to that point to even understand where they were.
Exactly. All we can do is speculate. We don't know we don't actually know the answers to these questions, guys. We can only speculate. We can only go by what the Bible says. We can't, Mike Adams, who was a Christian and committed suicide that Sammy just mentioned, you know, we hope he's in heaven, and by how he lived his life, we hope he is, but we don't know. We just we can't know. But that's for everyone, guys. You know how Jesus said, there will be people who reclaimed my name, and I'm gonna be like, get away from me. I don't know you. People who seemed Christians, who seemed like they served the Lord, who seemed like they were faithful, and suddenly they're not in heaven with us. And it's like, what? What happened? So, you know, follow Jesus. He's the best example. He's the best mentor.
I got a quick question for you guys, just because I'm thinking about it right now. Would you consider suicide if, like, you're going to die if you do a certain thing, but it's something to save another person? Like a father running back into a burning building and you're going to die, but you need to save your kids or something of that nature. Would that be considered suicide because mentally you're going to die?
I would say your intent is you're not going in there to kill. You're doing it more of a survival instinct. I would say no, just because you're not going there intentionally, like, here, let me go into the fire and literally stay there while I pull my son out or my child out.
Yeah, because then we would have to say that Jesus' sacrifice was suicide. Because he went up there to save us. He knew he was gonna die, and he didn't stop himself because he was gonna save us. So I think that's more a heroic act than considered a suicide act, if that makes any sense.
So would you say that, like, suicide would be more of a coward's way of doing it?
Yes.
Again, my opinion, I think it's a coward's way out.
I think that yes, but I think that we also forget we're not all the same, in the sense that we can't all take the same pain that someone else can. We're all designed differently also as far as emotions are concerned. And I don't think that takes away the label of cowardice, because it would still be the easier way out. I think that it's about the pain. It's all about stopping the pain. It's actually not about taking your life. It's about, I want the pain to go away. Go, Mandy, and finish it up for us.
That puts a lot of pressure. When you say finish it up, that makes me, I don't know. Okay, but my opinion on that is humans are scared of death. Okay? I'm scared of drowning a lot. Like, that's like what I'm most scared of, dying, like the way of dying. So we're scared of death. It's not like people are just in their mind like, I'm just gonna die today. No, there has to be a reason why they think that's the only solution left, is for them to leave Earth or to die. So I don't think it's a coward's way out. I feel like they think that that's their only solution to their problems, or that's the only hope left, when that's not the case. Jesus is our hope, and if you find yourself in that position of you think that there's no other way out, there is. Seek help, and it's okay to seek help. I know that your leaders here would be more than willing to help you guys, and we want you here. If you are struggling with this, know that Jesus Christ died for you on the cross, and that's how valuable you are to him. So think about that. You are valuable, you are important, and I know that all your leaders love you. We all love you, and we want you guys to be okay. And know that it's okay to not be okay, but that means that you should seek help.
Yes, this is correct. Okay, nobody has any questions. I already asked them if they had any questions. This was a great discussion. We disagreed on a few points, but it was still great stuff to talk about. I wish you guys would ask us more, would choose more questions where we disagreed on more, so that you can see, like, different points of views. I enjoy those kind of discussions. So, thank you guys for being here, and we will see you for episode 11, whenever that is. And until next time.
Are we gonna vote for the logo?
Oh, don't
yeah.
leave. Don't.
Yeah, the
Actually,
cheat sheets.
go to www.clrteens.com.
We found something we disagree.
Everyone should be
Yeah.
able to go there. There's the website.
www.what?
www.clrteens.com, and the first link there is going to be vote for logo or something like that.
Thanks, Amazon referring me. Oh, am I on mute?
You guys heard that?
Yes. All right, guys. Everyone have it? I'm in? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I left them the website, so vote. And we will see you next time, guys. Take care. Bye.